Hi there, it's Llarold, and today I'm making a video about Yazma, the final boss of atal'dazar. I've been thinking about making a series on some of the harder bosses in Mythic Plus for a little while, and the things you can do as a tank to make them easier for your groups. I think Yazma is the perfect candidate for starting this series off because you really have a ton of control on how the group performs in this fight. I meant to do this earlier in the season, but it's Christmas, you can't be mad at me. So with that being said, if you like this video, if you like this idea, and you want to see more videos like it about other bosses, leave a comment. I am actually interested to know if you want to see more videos like this and what bosses to talk about. Yazma is an interesting fight to me because she can be extremely hard for disorganized groups, and she definitely has the capacity to be like a group killer. She's a pretty hard fight at the end of an otherwise easy dungeon, but I've also seen groups make a big mess, be a bit sloppy, and still absolutely flatten her. As a tank, she's really forgiving. Like, you can just solo her if you need to. I have done that if everyone else in the group dies and she has 15 to 20 million health left. You can just kill her yourself. That's probably faster than resetting and rezzing. Now, with that being said, you will obviously kill her a lot faster if everyone's alive. That's the goal. And although it's not really a challenging fight for you personally as the tank in terms of staying alive, you're responsible for how difficult it is for most of the rest of the group. I think it's also a fantastic fight for using the new ping system that was added in patch 10.1.7 and kind of exercising that muscle of pinging things, which is extremely useful. I'll cover that a bit more later on. I've seen a lot of talk about this fight on Reddit and Twitter, and the main idea that gets talked about there is stay out of the middle of the room, and like that's the whole strategy. And while it is a good basic idea, it's not all there is to tanking this fight. It's not all there is to doing this fight. I would say you have three main goals in the fight as the tank. You want to lead the group around the room in a circle. You also want to keep everyone fairly close together, which keeps the spiders stacked together too. And finally, you want to position the boss and the group in a relatively safe spot for each soul rend cast so that they can deal with the mechanic without getting overrun by spiders. So now let's talk about the fight in a bit more detail, and we'll talk first about Yazma's abilities. She only has 4. Skewer just deals tank damage. It's basically just an auto attack, so we can call that 5 auto attacks and Skewer. If you've been able to live through tanking Razan and the rest of the dungeon, this isn't going to be a problem for you. Racking Pain is the second ability. It deals spell damage and damage over time. It's just a single target thing. She turns and casts it on somebody. Can't interrupt it, can't decurse it. It can be spell reflected, which is great, but it won't be cast on you, if you're playing a prot warrior, unless the rest of the group is dead. But if the rest of the group is dead, you can spell reflect it. It's a bit stressful on the healer, so if you're playing one of the classes that can off heal a bit like Paladin or Druid, helping relieve that pressure is good. Blessing of Spell Warding or Sacrifice are really great. Echoes of Shadra are the little ghost spiders that Yazma spawns. About every 30 seconds throughout the fight, they explode when touched, and they leave a nasty shadow damage over time pool on the ground. It does eventually despawn, but it takes, I think, about 2 minutes, if I remember correctly. The goal is obviously just not to touch them, but they alternate between chasing players around and going dormant, and they do that swap back and forth about every 5 to 6 seconds. So 5 seconds of chasing, 5 seconds of sort of just dancing around in place, back and forth and back and forth. This means they can be pretty annoying. This is the mechanic that forces you to move the boss around the room a lot, not constantly, not just a steady drag always around the room, but fairly regularly and in really pretty big moves when Soul Rend is about to come out. And finally, you have Soul Rend. Soul Rend rips a soul fragment out of all of the non-tank players in the group, which then walks toward Yazma, and if the soul fragment hits her, it applies a 20-second dot that basically guaranteed wipe the group, especially on higher key levels. The Soul Rend mobs can be stunned, slowed, CC'd, and they transfer a portion of all the damage they take to the player whose soul it is, so it's a healing check as well as a damage check. Yazma will never ever cast Soul Rend on a tank. If everyone else dies instead of casting Soul Rend, she just kind of freezes up for a few seconds. So fighting her solo is generally easier than fighting her with one other person, at least in my experience, because you're not having to juggle the Soul Rend at all. You can just take her down and dodge spiders. Not bad. Now, handling Soul Rend and spider overlaps really is the core of the fight, and it pretty much all comes down to moving the boss away from spiders at the right times. If you just try to move away from spiders all the time, first of all, you're going to be moving way too much. If you have any casters or ranged people in your group, they're going to be unable to do any damage. The group's going to have trouble keeping up even if they are melee. The spiders will be spread all over the room, and then you won't have anywhere safe for the group to go during the soul rend. So you want to move away from the spiders while they're chasing you. Like, you don't just let them run into you, obviously, but you only want to kite them just enough to get away from them initially. I've seen some players pop Cloak of Shadows or Divine Shield and clear out a bunch of spiders. You can do this as a prop paladin with Divine Shield or Blessing of Spell Warding. You can like throw that on a rogue if you're really coordinated and have them run through it. That's probably a little bit beyond the range of most pug groups, but cool if they're able to pick up on that and do it. That helps by cutting down some of the spiders, so you won't get chased quite as much, but you lose a lot of floor space to make that trade-off. So I think it's sort of a late in a fight desperation move to like clear out the last bit of spiders that are chasing people out and just barely push across the finish line with a very choked up room. At least that's how I think about it. The main thing you want to watch for as the tank is when Soul Rend is coming up. That is your main focus in this fight, your number one timer to watch. When the next Soul Rend cast has less than 10 seconds left, you want to find a big safe spot in the room, as big as you can, to drag the boss, and then you're looking for two things. One, you're looking for a clean spot for the boss, and a clean spot for the group to stack with their Soul Rends. Bear in mind that the spiders also are going to continue activating and deactivating every 5 seconds, so if they've deactivated a couple of seconds before the Soul Rend cast starts, they're going to reactivate right as it starts. So they're going to be chasing people. So you want to give the group even more space in that case. So once you've accounted for all of that, you want to ping where the group should go stand. You want it to be away from the spiders, but also close enough to the boss that the group can like make it there. A really important thing to think about here is that it doesn't actually need to be that far from the boss, because you can move her away from the Soul Rends if you really need to, but also you can stun them, you can slow them, you can root them, you can knock them, you can use Ursol's Vortex, so on. So having them spawn like 60 yards away from the boss really isn't necessary. In fact, I would say it's probably unhelpful. It causes you to lose a lot of damage uptime. You have to spend a bunch of time moving across the room. You're probably running around spiders if you're really trying to go far away, especially late in a fight when there are tons of spiders all over the place. So with that being said, be sure you don't let the spirits hit. The boss's hitbox for the spirits is pretty big. It's bigger than it looks. And, you know, you do want to actually use your crowd controls, your Ring of Peace, your Death and Decay slow, Typhoon, again, Ursol's Vortex, anything you can do to help the group deal with Soul Rend and keep it off of the boss. And also, if you have any sort of damage you can throw out, like a Divine Toll, that is where I like to hold my Divine Tolls for when the Soul Rends are coming out. Throw Divine Toll, cleave down a bunch of guys. That's pretty much all there is to this fight as a tank. You help with the Racking Pain healing if your class allows that. You move the boss so that your group has safe space to operate when Soul Rend is coming out, and you help with Soul Rend however you can. The best thing you can do to help with Soul Rend is pinging a safe space to stack. I really can't overstate how useful the ping system is. WoW players have immediately taken to it, and that is both good and bad. On the one hand, if you ping somewhere during a fight, players will go there. On the other hand, if you ping somewhere during a fight, players will go there. I accidentally have pinged Yazma instead of the safe space to stack for Soul Rend like half a dozen times, and most of the time, for a couple of seconds, players will run toward the boss before realizing what's happening and then scrambling over to a safe spot. So that's it. Move Yazma to a safe space about 5 to 10 seconds before Soul Rend, ping the stack spot, help with the Soul Rends however your class allows, and above all else, don't panic. I've seen groups absolutely start losing their cool, run through spiders, run the wrong direction around the room, spread out, people die. And then Soul Rend is coming up, I pull Yazma to a safe spot, ping the stack point, and everything's totally fine again. Everybody comes back together, they're all moving in unison the way they're supposed to, the bad part's over, it's all cool, we got this, no reason to worry, easy kill, GG's in the chat. And if it really comes down to it, you can't just solo the boss. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.